So we've got about 9 minutes for that.
Well, we know it.
As you could
So,
say, families, lack, identified access.
you're in the trenches with the city.
Lack of.
Bam.
So we're going off.
We nailed that? Yeah, that's a
We're
good
in
start.
the might as well. Yeah, you interact with people. Yes.
So our intervention is the S. Certain, so.
That's the I.
That's the one where we say they have certain.
Let's just make sure that all of these pieces match.
You don't want us to redo everything.
Yeah, but you talked about.
We did in class.
No.
Do we want to have something else?
Yeah, just come up with something else that you're familiar with. Yeah.
Safe.
And family, I mean,
Child care.
okay.
Family.
What's the problem?
That's what they
So
need.
that's
There's no,
I put me in there. You wanna write it down?
Do they really need one class?
No.
No, last time we kicked out of our program.
All right.
No, we have to go to our general statement of results expected. Oh. Is that supposed to have numbers in it? I guess
There we
it
go.
does.
Oh, that's right, we're
We
supposed to
just
go,
have to write
we
the-
have to skip to the.
So that's the problem, what's the outcome?
There we
So
go.
what's wrong with mental health services?
Healthy.
It needs
It doesn't
more?
exist.
And safe
Does not
recreation.
They closed the only one that
I'm all
was
over
immediately.
Well, there is still.
I'm already in S, that's part of our S too. Families have.
So the general statement of results expected.
Okay, so we identify the number of
Have,
to be
that
served.
there are.
We can make that up.
And that
Okay,
is what
our
makes it
outcome
right.
is.
Right?
That's what we're
Not
supposed
supposed
to
to
do.
How did you
Right.
jump to outcome?
I didn't have, I just put have.
Have what, oh. But it says identify the number of clients to be served. And the time for the
All right,
project,
so all families.
So
In the,
This is just one of the surveys.
in Kalispell,
So let's say, then,
22.
how many people go
Identify the
to
number.
to recreation? So let's say,
I'll say.
200.
Sure.
We'll make this.
200
Service activity.
And then identify the time frame, so,
Obtaining. So 200 families have access to
Identify the service
200.
adequately safe.
expected to produce
and all up here, so let's say 6 months.
the number of clients
So over
estimated to be
6 months.
served.
Yeah, so let's figure this out.
Is it over? What did they do?
So-
Then we have a time frame for the project, so.
Let's do it. Let's do, oh, I got.
Yeah, and I like how you did that, that's what I was just telling you.
Video,
That middle column is
Video.
for that. Okay, so for now, I'm the in the directions, they say we're not gonna.
So, you want to, how we
All right.
want to be able to say,
We have to have that results
I
oriented
will say
approach,
with,
though.
expected.
10 patients.
So,
Everyone is happy.
We could say.
I think you want to
Everyone
keep it.
reports level of happiness 7 points higher than their previous.
We've got a 5-minute countdown. Tick, 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 tick. 4 minutes and 45-second countdown.
So how about this, I got 130.
50 patients do what?
Right.
They get services.
Recreate
Yeah, 50 patients per year.
safely, healthy, and safely and healthy.
So-
Receive services.
How should we say?
Let's just say receive services. It could get
50 per
real
year.
different.
Well, we would have to do it.
Receive services.
there's no help for
I know, it's all these proxy outcomes.
No, it's just.
No proxy outcomes.
Okay, so
All right.
6 months.
Well, it's like, I'm looking for an output.
So what do we have to, okay, the outcome is that they have mental
So
services.
families.
What we're gonna do to get to the
adequate,
outcome.
And that's your column,
So,
your service or your activity.
Yeah, 200 families have.
yeah, but that's how we're gonna do it. We're gonna have to build, we would have to identify and
Each
build
outcome's
more
more
build
business.
facility.
Oh, see, we actually,
No,
you
not yet,
identified that
not
there's
yet.
That's the
100.
surface that we provide.
So really, this would be
That's-
100.
that's-
There's
We can't say
100
they will
patients
have the
available and we're
recreational
gonna see
license.
50 of them.
So are we
Right.
needing to?
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
we're saying, yeah.
Maybe.
Are we needing to go on?
She
to,
just
like,
said,
these
because I asked her, what's the?
Yeah, so here you'll, yeah, you'll
Well, then
indicate,
what do we-
we're gonna skip that one.
Service that we're gonna
We're
provide.
gonna put in the ones that, how many or what would be your expected to achieve?
They'll love it, they'll love it.
Oh, I see, so, you know, we can still stay with 50, that's fine. We can identify that. So it's just how many are we expecting
Just pull it out.
now?
Our outcome just says there
Um,
will be no.
we could put-
So what service,
Case
so do
files.
we gonna
Case
provide?
files.
Oh, we don't have an
So
outcome.
we could do bowling, karaoke.
So do we have to
I
be
love
more
the-
specific?
So
Does it
they
say
really do
at
have
home?
filing cabinet.
They actually say you burn
Yeah.
100 calories.
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, you can do that, right? Like,
All right, throw safe out the window. You just go with health.
So we're gonna have.
how's everybody doing?
Here is
Uh,
the number.
Yes.
Maybe you can help us out.
Yeah.
So she had brought up.
Review of
Okay,
progress.
here we go. So for
No,
Schindler.
lost it. The need was.
So- We gotta get on this.
They're doing it.
Right? I'll say, ladies got.
But then this is where-
I wrote all over. So families and recreation.
See which families have, you know, found
In
that.
this would be 100%.
Oh, I thought you were.
Don't say no results.
That's a
We're saying we want to see, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly, that you,
Because if we,
Yeah.
if we
So-
achieve 50 of them, to actually get something from their outcome,
Yeah.
it's very broad.
yeah, right, exactly, and
Is
because.
it too broad or should we round it down?
No, so
The-
this is like the frequency of data.
I mean, your outcome would,
Alright.
you know, have mental health services for available clientele, I mean, for eligible clientele. But that
Weekly
then
styles.
might
Or
narrow the
average
scope of it, that might not be what the
average,
intent of your program is. Your
Well,
program
really,
might be a
and
low
the
barrier
science-
program where
Yes.
you're like, anybody who comes in who self-reports that they have a mental health need, we're gonna provide a service for.
Right.
So if that's the model that you
Yeah.
wanna employ,
Let's say
I
it is.
applaud
That's
you,
three.
and
Say it is.
let's say that you're gonna have a high success rate.
So then we're gonna have
So
a-
then
how many
people have
people
that
handed up
availability
that
because you're not having certain eligibility
So we expect
criteria.
50 people to actually
Whoa.
show the
And that would be a number
All
that
right.
we could put on there.
This is basically what we determined was in
Yeah.
two
And
years.
some models are like that. I mean, we think about Sunburst Mental Health Center right now, they have a walk-in center where anybody who walks in is eligible for services. Hands down, because they have alternate funding that dictates who's eligible and utilized to do that. So, you know, so there are models that exist for it, yeah. So, you know, it's just, yeah,
Projected
Yeah.
number of clients expected to achieve each aspect of
Okay, so
that.
what do you say?
So we thought honestly, we actually did 74.
Yeah, right, number
Well, I
47.
put 47.
Yeah, 45, let's say 45. 45,
And then it can be divided by the number of
went and got
We
Sure.
provide.
okay. We got 30 seconds to wrap it up, folks. Thank you. I know.
We identified 50,
So
but
100
only
families
45
that
went.
participate.
Right.
Yeah.
We told 50 people that.
So what evidence do you collect to prove your outcomes? Admission.
An average of 12.
Admission.
Yeah.
That's your data.
All right.
Provider.
We are totally.
Okay, guys, let's wrap it up right now. Again, we've got folks that are traveling back home, so we want to make sure that we give them adequate time because we've got a winter weather advisory and it's fixing to be dark. So what we're gonna do right now is, I'd really like an opportunity to review all of these in their entirety. And so I've gone around and had a chance to kind of look at them. But what we can do is we can leave them open for our peers to also examine. So each group can look at each other's to get an idea of kind of how this evolved and what that kind of looked like. So we have that opportunity for all of us to review these. What I want to know is what was difficult in the process?
2 and 4.
Being creative.
Columns 2 and 4, is that what you
Yeah.
said? Okay.
She got hung up on
Yeah.
those. I did.
Kind of
So,
understanding the difference there.
Services, and then your outcome indicators.
And
Okay.
putting numbers into both, and why wouldn't they be the same? I already forgot what we did an hour and a half ago.
Did you? Okay, okay. And so.
Yeah, I kind of
okay.
forgot why those weren't the same
falling out
numbers.
of my head right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot, yeah. Did you
We're not
use that guide on page 97?
Yes.
I think
Yeah,
that,
it
yeah,
didn't
so that's
help.
that's a helpful tool. And honestly, I've written a lot of logic models, and I go back to that every time to make sure that as I'm doing it, I'm making, I'm making them accurate as we move forward. Was there anything that was interesting in this process?
I was.
You were interested? Sean was interested.
You're always interested.
I
think
Sean,
these
I've come to determine that.
would be
in my
easier
short
to
time.
do if you had actual data.
Yeah.
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 Okay, yeah,
Because
yeah.
that was for me the hard part. It's like, all right, well, what numbers make sense? Or
Yeah,
what,
and
what
that's
numbers
hard because we
are
do have a good
reasonable?
cross-section of people
I was
in
like, I
here
don't
today
know.
too, people who are frontline as well as people who work behind the scenes to support the causes that we all are working towards. So that's a really good point, is without some of that baseline knowledge, it's hard to kind of artificially create these things. So
In 5 minutes.
now that we've created
Yeah,
these
we don't
logic
have-
models, how are we gonna use them?
To get funding.
Probably
funding? Yeah.
redo it.
Okay.
Probably have to redo mine.
Funding and
They would
for,
be like, no
to-
fun for you.
to get approved funding for
Okay.
self-improvement.
Okay,
Yeah, probably.
Staffing,
See
allocation.
what happened, you know, you come back to the next year, you run into the same issues, like, all right, well, what worked last year and how could I improve it?
absolutely. We have to be able to take these plans to our board, and our board has to be able to review them to determine if we're hitting the marks that we're supposed to. We have to be able to take it to the funders to see if we're hitting the marks, and we have to be able to modify or improve upon things that we have previously outlined. So those are all really good examples. So we've had a pretty comprehensive discussion about the format of the logic model, and because we've been doing some planning models, we haven't done a ton of analysis of the actual results. So we're gonna jump into that right now as we wrap up module number 7. So let's cruise ahead all the way over to page number 103, okay? In this, we have a logic model that we're gonna refer to, and it's over here on this wall, and I apologize, we had no more wall space today, so this is where our logic model is right over here underneath the clock, which is gonna help keep us on track, okay? So what we see is that in this logic model, number 1, families are at risk of being evicted, okay? And so we are going to talk a little bit about the content that's involved here. So in the planning part and we see that the intervention is 1 month of emergency rent. And actually, you guys, you have this.
Yeah,
And it's
104.
on 104, yeah.
Yep.
So you have this on 104, and you can look at that there, just on page 104, okay? So again, we've looked at format, now we're gonna look at this content part of it and the data analysis to discuss the use of the logic model as a way to gather and analyze data, and then to make changes to programs as indicated by data, which is what Erin just said, is that, we have to use the data from this in order to modify and cater our programs to get the outcomes that we want, and we use that through analysis, we get that through analysis. So I'm not gonna read every cell of this because you guys already have it, but here we do see that the need in that planning column, they have 2 needs that are identified that are shaded there, and that's families at risk and then families who are homeless. And then over in column number 2, we have service activities, again, for those 2 needs that are met. We have our outcome indicators in column 3. And in column number 4, we have our outcome in column number 3 and our indicator in column number 4. So again, just kind of work through this and look at your own copy to make sure that you're understanding the composition of what this module looks like. What we are going to do right now is we're going to open up.
If you're gonna work off that, and we wanna put it up there temporarily so you can be on the video.
Yeah, I think
Maybe we could grab both and throw
I
it
know,
up
or
there.
either that or we can reorient that. So this is actually the second one. So this one needs to be underneath, and then that one needs to be the top one. So this is just on your page 104 there. Sorry, we're gonna move this so that we have the benefit of capturing it on video. So that we're reflecting, oh goodness. It's the cascading coasters
Right.
at the end of the day.
Of course.
Yeah, that's okay.
Cascade.
The falling waters. Yes. So what I would like to do here is I really just want to focus this presentation on column number 5, because this is the spot where we've been talking so much about the planning process, and this is where we're actually going to get into a place where we can look at actual results and analysis of this. So I'm going to uncover column number 5 here, okay? Ta-da, the big reveal. You guys have already had that uncovered on yours, so you're able to reference what those actual results were there. So we can look at this and see 2 key points, okay, with the outcome indicator. We see that there are some time frames associated with it, but then over here in the actual results, we're able to see at 30 days there were outcome measures, at 60 days, and at 90 days there were outcome measures. So they continued to have some follow-up. So what questions do you have about performance when you look at this, when you look at column number 5 as it relates to this total logic model in terms of program performance? So we see on here what they were trying to do, which is keep people in their own residence, and now we're looking at what they actually achieved, which 92% stayed in their place after 30 days, 85 after 60 days, and 58% after 90 days.
Well, it's more than half. I mean, it's better than the best batting average.
So that's, yeah, so that, if that was the reference that we're working towards, yeah, absolutely. What they had targeted though was 100%. That's what their indicator had been, is they said 100% of people were gonna remain in their residence for 30 days. So they got close to that, okay? But what they noticed is as time went on, they got further and further away from actually maintaining that level of performance.
So maybe they needed
and
to
that
change
level
their
of
indicator
success.
and up their indicator.
Or
too.
maybe change like the program.
Okay, so yeah, some ideas there on how they could make some big modifications with it. So again, we see that number goes down, that number goes down. So what happens is, just like Aaron was describing earlier, what we're gonna do, or what effective managers and accountable agencies are gonna do, is they're gonna look at this outcome and they're gonna say, you know what, are we really impacting long-term change like we're set out to do? And are we accomplishing the things that we want to, okay?
Well, they would list a different indicator, because for their indicator for 30 days, they were at 92%, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
But that's
So
what
they're
I'm
gonna
saying.
create a new
They need to
outcome.
create a new indicator so that they're looking at a
Longer
longer term
term.
piece of data to make sure they're effective.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, because they got what they wanted, because they gave them
They
30
got what
days
they
worth of
wanted.
emergency help.
Yeah,
And that's it.
exactly. You got
So-
30 days worth of it's kind of an artificial way to
Yeah.
assess whether or not that's effective, because you're providing that assistance for that time period.
And then
Yeah.
look at the second one, they got 100%,
Well,
as they define their indicator.
but see, that showed to me that the program that they were running wasn't working long-term, which would
Yeah.
mean that they probably need
Right.
to change
And
the
they added,
requirements to the program, or,
they added additional measurements
support
even
after.
beyond their indicator
Yeah.
to help them say, we
Yeah.
should focus on longer.
So they need a different service, because if they're looking at their risk of being evicted, it looks like 90 days starts, the more you go, the more their risk is
The risk
out
goes
there.
up,
So
right.
they need some other kind of, not only an indicator, it has to be 90
or
days.
long-term.
So after
So
time
what else
goes
would it
on,
A new
cost?
service,
Yeah.
different
We
service.
need to
We
find some
have
other service, or,
there are some limits with this service or this intervention, and we see that that maxes out as time passes on. And since we really want to be able to evaluate incremental change as time goes on, this agency, which is a responsive community or data-driven agency, is going to say, hold on, let's evaluate our performance so that we can make sure that our plan moving forward more accurately reflects our accomplishment of change on that long-term scale. So these outcomes, what happened is they've expanded their need, and they've resulted, this became, what happened with this, the number 2, okay, with logic model number 2, is that they've expanded the need here, okay, so they have filled more items in with the need and really clarified and put some numbers in there. And they've done that by adding some dimension of short, intermediate, and long-term
Yeah.
change, okay? And so they did this so that they're now expecting some additional outcomes and needing to report on some additional outcomes and results. They did it because when they analyzed the data the first time around, they realized that there were limitations with what they were trying to accomplish,
Yep.
and they needed to expand their focus in order to capture the successes that they were making and target their efforts appropriately. So